I have to say, we volunteered to do it before we saw quite how much there was on the programme.
Yeah.
So
how do we do
it as a conversation?
Yeah. So let's do that.
Yeah.
So what we decided is to have a conversation, to share with you what we heard in conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We felt rather than give you a reflection or a kind of like a feedback or this is what everybody said, that's why we've just been putting together the things that resonated for each of us, and we're just going to have a conversation with each other about those.
Exactly. Yeah. How do you want to start?
Well, you did, Rachel did an amazing sort of immediate, this is what we heard and this is what we need to do.
Yeah, there are so many things. So we've heard about resources, and that's a brilliant subject. We can't do anything without resources, so it's great to have been able to talk about that. Do you want to say a word about resources?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that that the conversation was about resources, but that resources not just being money, being the ideas, being the collaboration, being the weaving together of different people and different ideas. And so that feels like it broadens the conversation away from just funding resources, because we have some other things to say about those.
Yeah. We've heard about people too. People, communities, and great, fantastic example of projects where communities have been engaged and have created great experiences and great creative value. Do you want to say something about that or move on?
So if we're going to talk about people, we're also thinking about who's not here.
Yeah.
And who's only here in very small amounts.
Yeah.
Like young people. And we were thinking about the demographic in this room reflecting the demographic of the area, and Josh's whole point about what's happening to young people, and actually the potential role for those of us who are more wrinkled and greyer to be active supporters and to use our resources in support of younger people rather than leaving it to younger people, but without taking their agency away.
Yeah.
And that goes for more than just young people. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was so good I don't like to be old, but that's the truth. Thank you for the approach and how you called us really to realize that we are all over 40 in this room, and that's not representative. And so we have something that we can share with younger generations and younger groups. Yeah.
Do you want to say something there about the
legacy?
Other ways? No, go ahead.
I forgot that.
About who else is not here because of how we think about it's your point about the digging deeper and and who's not here.
We had a lot of example of what's going on outside this city, and we are here. It's Friday, isn't it? We were here between 9 and now 5 p.m. So who is not here? Everybody is not working in the arts. Everybody who is at work at this time and will be available only on the weekend. So I'm wondering, can we do the same in the weekends so that community can be a real community consultation? Yeah,
I think you noticed that we started with that quote from Nina Simone about...
Yeah. Fantastic quote. Started with digging. Joe, you said that Nina Simone, digging... Yes, digging where standing. And we don't have it, but we have this lovely... Can we have the culture shock? The visual of the culture shock event here? So we wanted to reflect on culture shock, the event, and what the culture, and as we know... I'll just give you a minute.
Just while we're waiting for that, I think we would I really like the way you said it's about digging where we live. Is it? But are we digging deep enough? And I think because it was such a powerful line to start with, and thinking about what it really takes to dig deep, and that actually it slightly relates also to listening to the great examples we've heard, but thinking about Stroud District as a whole and ensuring this isn't just, there could be a risk of it being Stroud town-centric, but thinking about Stroud District as a whole and digging right across the county.
Yeah, and Charles started the day also talking about culture and how culture is institutional, instrumental, and
intrinsic.
And that's, I know that often some groups, some particular groups like Black people usually are only called for instrumental side of culture, as we had in often, and we had here in Culture Shock flyers or visual, we had this Black artist. And so we've got the instrumental, and I think it was a really nice way from Charles to talk about the different side of culture, and we would like to have more Black people in the institution taking decisions, and also intrinsic, just art, just making art and being.
I really liked the point you made in your session on the difference between Black art being about delivery, usually, which is, I think, your instrumental point, versus Black art being about being a decision maker, being in the room. And we might broaden that out to class as well, and thinking about applying that intrinsic, instrumental, institutional lens on all of the broader population, and thinking about is the whole population involved in the intrinsically and institutionally, not just instrumentally. So that ended up being quite a big theme for us in our conversation today.
Yeah. And I think a good way also to say that the curation of this event and the opportunities of this event, the fact that we are here, just being able to say that and to share the ideas, show the potential and the will and the sincerity in this idea of cultural planning. So I think that's something to really celebrate in relation to this event.
Yeah, and picking up, we found this image quite thought-provoking as the day's gone along, and the word that stood out to me as that we maybe need to have pay more attention to in these two words on the screen is shock. We've heard quite a lot about culture, but what's the shock bit of this? What's the shock we need? And somebody, so I have so many pages of notes.
Yeah, we have a lot.
I think, Andrea, it was in your talk, I heard somebody talking about little shocks of change. And I think it was maybe in the film. And I thought, I think that's other than in your conversation this morning, I think that's the only other place I've heard shock, because I've been listening out for it today. And actually maybe, so I'm interested that it's in the title of the day, and I wonder if that's what we need to pay some attention to, is what's the shock we really need? And maybe it's lots of little shocks is actually much easier for us to take in than big shocks. So, yeah.
Yeah. What else?
There's something for me picking up from there. Joe, do you need to shout at us when I think we could go on reflecting for about 3 hours. So
yeah, approximately.
One more.
Collaboration?
Okay, you
strategy?
take collaboration, I'll take strategy. Yeah.
Okay, collaboration. It was everywhere. Every presentation, every part of this day was talking about collaboration, and it feels so embedded in everything that everybody wants to do. So it feels like the superpower in the room, collaboration, and yeah, what else can I say about that?
Can I pick up one thing on that?
It.
Is that I'm really struck by I was listing the words that I heard that were related to that, which was things like orchestration, alignment, and weaving. And I thought that weaving is part of the cultural heritage of this area, and actually the weaving of everything we've heard, the weaving together of everything, feels really important, and actually that segues me nicely into being strategic. Mm-hmm. Because the other reflection we had was, we've heard all of these incredible examples of different ways of creating change. Something I often think about is that we don't know what we don't know, and we're limited by what we can imagine. And so the richness of today, of hearing so many ideas from so many places about what could be possible, that's expanded, I think, probably for all of us, our imagination. But it was Tom talking about Stroud Town Centre this morning, really struck me about the need to be really highly strategic about this. There is so much that could be done. And doing everything as individual projects, it's great for those projects. There's some fantastic work. But how are we really strategic about this? How do we weave it together and use everything all the resources in the room to really be strategic about what we need to do with culture to create the shock of change that we need?
Yeah. Thank you.